Hope everybody is enjoying their holidays. This is GKW special edition of GKW. Gabe Neitzel, Brian Rowitz, and Jonathan Hood. We just spent a lot of time debating who was going to make this show. It was a very good 2024 for us at GKW, and this is another tradition that we've done, kind of a year in review. We've got a lot to get to, and if there's somebody that you'd like to hear from, just maybe just check out the YouTube page, youtube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. But where I think we have to kick off the show is we were given during our 100th episode by Evan Cohen, our boss at Good Karma Wrestling, challenged us. Hey, this is the guy you have to get in 2024. That was none other than the Heartbreak Kid himself, Shawn Michaels. And sure enough, we got HBK right here on GKW. If you are a diehard listener of GKW, you know that when we had Evan Cohen on, who was pretty much the creator of this podcast, he gave us a goal, and that's to have the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, on the pod this year. And sure enough, here he is, Mr. WrestleMania himself, Shawn Michaels. Shawn, thank you so much for the time, man. Thanks for jumping on.
You bet. I appreciate y'all having me. I'm proud to know that I was a goal in someone's life.
We did not tell that person this interview was scheduled just in case it didn't happen. We were waiting until it's actually happening, and here we are.
Well, of course, so you were here because NXT starting on the CW. Everybody's excited about it. Tuesday, October 1st, they're going to be down in Hoodie's neck of the woods in Chicago. Right after that, going to be going to St. Louis. Tickets are on sale now for NXT as they hit the road to be part of the new lineup over on the CW. So with NXT, I want to start there. What has been one of the challenges that you did not anticipate when you first took the job as the head of NXT?
Being the head of NXT, getting the job. Okay. To be perfectly honest, Hunter went down, boom, and I got put in the position. So that was obviously the most unexpected part of it, obviously. But again, I'll say this: one of the things that it's a kind of a weird balance that you have. One of the great things you love about this job is that we're kind of always ready for the fire drill. I mean, a lot of things can happen. There can be flight delays. This happens, that happens, and then we've got no different than when there was the delays and the NXT crew had to jump on a plane and fly and fill in and do SmackDown. Those were always kind of very nervous but exciting, and especially when you deliver on them. So that was the most challenging part, is just kind of getting thrust into this position that I sort of was I did it on the sides, on the periphery, but I was never, entrenched in it. So that was obviously the hardest part. And then adjusting to the entirely new show. It wasn't just a job, but a different concept, all new talent, all new and young and beginning talent. So I think a lot of times we see where we're at now in NXT and things are fantastic and running smoothly. But there's a great deal of pride by the young men and women that on those first couple of shows, as they call it, it's dubbed 2.0. It was very trying at the beginning, but they were all so fantastic. They were young, green, had no idea what to expect, but everybody came together. And again, I think we all look back on that experience with a great deal of pride, because we managed to weather the storm, and now we've come out on the other side, walking into this fantastic, 5-year relationship with the CW and a network that is behind us 100%. And of course, just the possibilities are endless, and then getting to go on the road, the debut, happening in Chicago, then the next week in St. Louis, Punk and Randy being a part of it, just a really big and exciting time for NXT.
What are those discussions like between yourself and Hunter when there is a free agent and you say, hey, I see a spot for him in NXT, and Hunter's like, oh, we need him on Raw? What are those discussions like?
Well, look, the ultimate goal for NXT is to lose talent, to lose it to the main roster, for them to move up. So as weird as it sounds, that's our job. And that's just a mentality that you have to have in this. There's going to be a constant kind of cycle with us. You're going to be ebbs and flows. And that's why I always, again, and it sounds like you're trying to blow it off, but that's why we can't get caught up in like the ratings and stuff like that. When everything is said and done, NXT is in the green. NXT, WWE, Raw, SmackDown, right now, we are trending upwards, which nobody in linear television is doing. So that makes us an extremely hot commodity. So that is that's already baked in my opinion. But we're going to go through ebbs and flows and cycles because our job is to create and manufacture talent for the main roster. And as you get these people and they get over, they get notoriety, they start to build a fan base. It starts to, equal ratings from our standpoint. Well, then we lose them, and then we've got to introduce a bunch of people again, and that that viewership is naturally going to go down because they've been attached to these other characters. So again, it's an interesting process that you kind of have to get used to because it's not the natural. Everything else is to sustain, continue to build on the talent. Again, time and maturity are all good things in our line of work. You know what I mean? The longer you're on television, the more the fans bond to you. In our job here in NXT, it's kind of different because the minute they bond to you, boom, you can be jettisoned off to Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah. What are the challenges for the ones that do get jettisoned off to Raw and SmackDown? Because now they're over at NXT, but now they have to get over all over again up on Raw or SmackDown. What are some of those challenges some of those superstars have to go through?
Yeah, look, it's sink or swim. And I'll say this, it's a great dose of reality for them. And I think it's it's NXT. And again, I liken it to not a bad thing, but I liken it to raising our children. We used to have a saying, Gym Not. Gym Not is like you have to keep doing it over and over. You have to tell them over and over for certain things to become a habit, to become natural to them. And then as they begin to feel like they've got a hold of it and they're popular here in NXT, you go up there and you get into that big pond and you realize what a real big fish looks like. And you hear, the difference between when you go out and somebody like a Roman Reigns goes out, the difference when you go out and somebody like a Cody Rhodes goes out. And again, it's a good, humbling process for them because once again, that hunger, that desire, that passion gets reinstilled in that individual, and now they have another goal to shoot for. So the one thing that's also fantastic is that we have a bunch of athletes down here that are goal-oriented. So they're very coachable. That humility that they do have when they move to the main roster is something that's positive because that just drives them more to have that success.
Sean, you had previous stops before you came to WWE working with Vince because you worked with guys like Bob Geigel and Vern Gagne and Bill Watts and Joe Blanchard. So how much of your style of leadership and booking came from previous stops in your career?
Well, I will say this. I was fortunate to be around a lot of fantastic, not just promoters, but also, again, I look back at the DiBiase's, the Rock and Roll Express, Macho Man Randy Savage, Tully and Arn, some of the great people that I was, so fortunate to not just be in the ring with, but be in a locker room with Jake Roberts, guys that you just had so many different ways of looking at the business and different psychology. So look, I think all of those kind of, form the person that you become. But ultimately, you have to, again, go with your instincts. And I always try to, what Hunter and I both do, we talk about it all the time, the fan in us, what it is that we want to see. And that's the thing that I think I'm most proud of is that I've never stopped being a wrestling fan. I feel like, again, I'm 59 years old, but I've got the mind of a 12-year-old still, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes, that's a huge advantage for me from a wrestling fan standpoint because I still want it to be fun. I like it to be enjoyable. I recognize that they're very, you've got different camps. And again, this doesn't need to be real. I don't know. I just never understood that there was a real version of what it is we do. I'll be damned if I've ever seen it. But it's sports entertainment, and there's something for everybody. And I think that's what I enjoy a lot about NXT is that's something that we're beginning to tap into now as well. It's not just kind of one genre. It doesn't have one niche. It's got a lot of things for everybody because, again, that's what we're trying to create for the main roster and for, future stars on Raw and SmackDown. If you can have another Cody Rhodes, great. If you can have another Drew McIntyre, fantastic. a new day, the Street Profits. There's a number of different aspects to this job that you've got to try to get your fingers into. And that's something that I feel like in NXT, we're having that variety now that I think maybe wasn't there in the past.
You mentioned October 1st in Chicago. CM Punk will be on that show. We see on social media he's around your roster a bunch. What does CM Punk mean to NXT as sort of a player coach right now?
Well, look, the fact that he supports us is huge. And I think the great thing is he's, like a lot of us do, he's come to a point in his career where he recognizes, just how great this job has been and how great this industry has been to him. And you begin then to learn that you'd like to pass that on. And so, look, when he comes down, he's always very supportive. He's helpful. What I appreciate most about him is that he always checks with our coaches, checks with me. Again, making sure that we're all on a unified front, and pushing the same agenda or same direction. And I think that's something you can never beat a guy that is right now in this moment, a living, breathing, global superstar like CM Punk coming back and interacting with your young talent because he's everything they want to be. So that's always going to be a positive because they see me every day. I am so not special around here. It doesn't even matter. And again, so it's very, beneficial for us when a CM Punk or a Cody Rhodes or a Drew McIntyre or a Seth Rollins comes down here and visits us because now they can talk to the guys that are firsthand doing it and letting them know what it is they need to experience the same kind of success.
During your career, you were known as the best in-ring performer. Who do you think has that mantle today?
Look, I will say I think Seth is a fantastic performer. And that right now, that's me just, off the top of my head, picking one. But I think he's a guy that just has unbelievable talent. AJ Styles is still a guy that I think is fantastic as well. So, I don't know. Again, and the more I would sit here and think about it, there are probably, other guys I would come up with. But I will say right now, for me, for my kind of style and what I enjoy out of matches, I think AJ and Seth are rocking pretty good right now, if you ask me.
All right, Sean, fact or fiction, NXT fans, the NXT universe are the best fans in WWE.
Well, it's fact for us down here in NXT for sure.
They are hot for everything, Sean. They are hot for everything. It's like it could be anybody coming to the ring and people are popped for it. That's got to make you feel good that no matter what, people are into the product.
It really does. And look, again, I go back to because I think they understand the place where it's coming from. It really is. It's about excitement. It's about passion. It really is entertainment and having fun. That is what we want. We are not, this is the WWE. This is NXT. You may not like the catchphrase of putting smiles on faces, but that is what we want to do. We are not, I am certainly not trying to, solve the world's problems by any stretch of NXT with our storylines. We're just trying to create for you an entertainment, episodic, exciting, wrestling television show. And I think that's what we're doing. So our fans here in Orlando are just the absolute best. And I do know for a fact when we get out there to Chicago and St. Louis on the 8th, they're going to be rabid. And it's going to be a blast for our talent to be able to go out there and perform in front of, again, seriously, when you talk about Chicago and St. Louis, you're talking about two unbelievable historic wrestling towns. And for our talent, it's going to be like a dream come true to come out and be able to perform for those people.
Guys, I mean, getting to talk to a legend like that, it is always fantastic when you get to talk to somebody who, again, and he's very excited about the role, even though he thought he would never be in the role he's currently in at NXT.
Yeah, you can completely understand why that is the case with Shawn Michaels because he gave Vince McMahon and the WWE fits. But look at him now. He's in control of NXT. They're on the CW network in 2024. So things are going in a positive direction for Shawn Michaels and NXT.
Yeah, it's always amusing seeing the DX stuff pop up and seeing how sophomoric Triple H and Shawn Michaels are like, oh, those are the bosses now. Those guys are running everything when it comes to WWE.
Amazing.
Yeah, like when Hunter shows up on podcasts and being like, yeah, USA got really mad at us and we were like this close to getting fired because of the stuff we were doing. Like that is enjoyable. Coming up next here on our year in review show, we had an opportunity to talk to one of the most decorated female wrestlers in WWE history who wrote a book this past year. And, well, of course, she was able to come on and talk about it, talking about the man, Becky Lynch.
Becky, it's Jonathan and Brian. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about the new book that you have out. We saw it on Raw. Do you have a copy? Can you flash us a little bit?
I got one here.
I do have a copy right here. Right here. Here it is. Couldn't find a good way to put it in the shot.
There you go.
Yeah, here it is. Here it is in its hardback form. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. Very proud of the work that I put into it. Probably the piece of work that I've done that I'm most proud of.
Okay. If someone told young Rebecca Quinn, young Becky Lynch, like, hey, one day you'll have a life worth writing a book about, what would your reaction have been back then?
Damn straight I will. Damn straight I will.
Okay.
My dad was always big on me writing. Like, he had me writing since I was like a little thing. He was like, you have to write everything down. And like at the time I was 5. I didn't have anything to write about. I was like, sweets cost 5p, like whatever it was. And so I kind of kept that up throughout my entire life. I've always journaled. I love it. I look at a journal as a very cheap therapist. And then when it came to doing it, I realized that writing journals and writing books are two very different things, and also writing promos are very different. So I was good in my journalistic form, and in my journal, like is in my journal, not being a journalist, but my journaling form. And then I think I'm pretty good at writing promos, but I'd never written a book. So then I did a year-long book course, like a book writing course. And that taught me a lot about storytelling and everything like that, and in terms of the long form. And here it is. Here it is, about to be out in the world.
Speaking of the man and Becky Lynch, we've talked on this show. We think Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley might be the star of WrestleMania 40. We think you guys should be main eventing. What is that pressure like on you to go out there and steal the show when you step in the ring at WrestleMania?
What pressure? I'm the man.
Okay.
What pressure? No, really, I love it. And what I'm loving about this is that there are a lot of people doubting me right now. There's a lot of people doubting, Rhea's on this run, Rhea's gonna take it. We're forgetting who's doing all the groundwork. We're forgetting who's been doing all the groundwork, who's been hiding in plain sight, elevating everybody to the top of their game, delivering, to quote another Irishman, banger after banger after banger after banger, and keeping everything afloat. Like, Rhea's been hovering around doing little backstages. I've been putting in the hard work, week in, week out, grinding, grafting. And I'm at the top of my game now. But I love it when people doubt me, because I said it in a promo. When people believe in me, I'm good. But when people doubt me, I am great. And that is true. And you can read all about it in my book. The Man, Not Your Average Girl.
Yes, hold that book up, Brian. Hold that book up for everybody. So that
you don't need to look at me. There we go.
There we go. That's right. Hold that book up. You never look better, Brian.
That's right.
You never look better. Available now wherever you get your books. Becky, tell us something that we don't know about the road, as far as you. Sometimes Seth is not with you. You're not with your child. And even though you have teammates in the locker room, even though you have fans that adore you, how alone can you be being able to be the person out there on the road, in the ring, by yourself? How alone
I don't really get much alone time these days, So there's several times where we don't travel with our daughter, but for the most part we do, and we're with her every week. So when I go out there, as soon as I come back, I'm mom. I'm back to being. I go from being the man to being the mom, and I'm running around on a bus playing hide and go seek, and so I think that's probably the part that people don't see about me. You know, it's not necessarily about the alone time. It's about the times when I come off stage and I go from being a badass to just being a big old softie. To be, well, actually just being like, she's a little bit of a dictator, this child. Like she's, you know, she runs a tight ship.
She get that for you or her father?
I think a little bit of both, and she's stubborn, you know. So everybody's got to be on board, and she's a little director, you know. So she's giving you things that you have to do, and then she gives you line reads. No, don't say it like that. Say it like this. And she loves like wrestling now. She loves wrestling. So I was trying to teach her a lockup the other day. She's 3, and she was like, no, not that. Like how Dada does it. So Dada always takes DDTs from her. So she's like, and you gotta hit me like, I gotta hit you like this, and then grab your neck. So she knows how to do a mean DDT and a mean leg drop.
All right. Okay. Genetics are amazing.
Yeah. So your daughter's Michael Hayes. Is that what's happening? Does your daughter have a fanny pack?
Oh, we should get her one. She does have the outlandish dress sense of Michael Hayes. Yeah. And they have their own little handshake, her and Michael Hayes.
Yes. Napes.
He gives her the napes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
gives it right back.
The women's revolution, you were one of the focal points of it, the 4 horsewomen. You guys are now all over the place in other companies, and we see so much of women's wrestling up and coming. What's the pride factor like when you see these new faces, you know, Tiffany Stratton in your own company? What's that pride factor like?
Look, it's a thing where see, we talk about women's wrestling, but it's just wrestling. You know, it's wrestling. Yep. It's just wrestling, and it's to the point now, and we're getting to the point, and I mean we've been at the point, I think, where it's just a standard fare, where we should main event. If the stuff is the best story, we've got the best match. Should be the main event. Easy, done. Of course. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we be top 6? So we just need we need the people and the talent and the hunger and the drive to continue that. And I like it because we're at this stage where we're talking about the micro. No, we're not talking about the macro. We're not talking about the big things that need to change. We're talking about the little things that need to be changed. In terms of the grand scheme of things, you know, like we just need to be looking at it as equal. Who are our stars? What are our stories? What are the stories that we want to tell? And it's not to the point where we're saying like, oh, women's matches should get cut, you know, if this time is over and there's one token women's match on a WrestleMania. There could be more. And there could be more stories. So we need to continue to talk about that. But like the women can't be the main event. The women aren't the draws. The women aren't the stars. Like all those things are gone out the window. We are the stars. We are the conversations. And it just needs to continue. Like you've got Rhea Ripley, who is a star. You've got Bianca Belair, who's a star. You have all these people that are coming up. You've got Lyra in NXT, who is a phenomenal talent, fantastic talent with a drive and a work ethic. We just need people putting in those hours, wanting to be the top dog in the business. And that's all it takes, just wanting to drive it forward.
The book, hold it up, Ryan. Wherever books are sold, right there, the man, right there.
There it is.
Wherever books are sold. You've done
Mick Foley said it's one of his favorite memoirs, and he knows a thing or two about writing books.
He knows a thing or two. He was very helpful in this. I love him.
Becky, you've done so much in the business. Now you have written a book. What is the period at the end of your sentence? What is it that you want to accomplish that you haven't accomplished yet in wrestling?
In wrestling? Nothing. So I say that and people are like, oh God. But it's a great thing, man, because now it's not about titles. It's not about winning a certain match. I would like to win the Money in the Bank briefcase. Like I like the power that holds over a champion, you know, it just puts them on edge. But that's just but what I'm saying is that I'm more interested in the stories and going back to the basics. Why did I start this? Because I love it. And so that's all it comes down to. It's the love of it. And now you're not thinking about what can I get out of it. You're just thinking, what can I put into it? And that is a beautiful space to be. That is my favorite space that I've been in. How can I give back to this as opposed to what's in it for me?
And it's always fun to talk with Becky, and she is. I love this spot where she's at in her career. I don't know. I'm assuming maybe she shows up at Netflix, on January 6th. But her book fantastic, and she's just very open about what she wants to do going forward in her career.
There's questions in 2024 of whether or not she's going to stay with WWE. And I think that she still will. I think the best part, Brian, was that, hey, it's not about a championship. She just wants to tell meaningful stories. I said, you got a long career for yourself. Like, what's the things that you want to accomplish? Nothing. Nothing. So she's totally fine with how her career's gone, but she wants to tell more stories.
Yeah, and some of those answers, I think, got my hopes up that maybe we'd see her elsewhere, that maybe we'd see her, pop up at AEW, do some New Japan stuff, but I do think she's loyal to that big W.
Yeah, she seems like certainly she is going to be a lifer. Our next guest that we talked to, definitely not a lifer. He's bounced around, but he got to finish his story this year. And, well, even though, I was the one who ended up missing out on him, he was going to be here in the city of Milwaukee. We had an opportunity to talk to the American Nightmare himself, Cody Rhodes.
The American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, the undisputed WWE champion, joins us here on Good Karma Wrestling. Cody, welcome back. Jonathan and Brian, thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. It's nice to be referred to as a friend of the show.
Yeah.
That means we did all right the last time. That's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. I wasn't WWE champion last time, though, huh?
That's right. Now you're the champ. Now you're a bigger deal.
Yes.
Whole new me, guys. Whole new me. I'm a total jerk. Total jerk. Everything changes. Just rotten. So, good luck.
Yeah, that's not true. How's life for you right now? Right now at this moment?
Oh, really, truthfully, and I've said this a lot when the cameras go off and we have our moments with the crowds at the end of the night. It's really the honor of my life doing this and to be able to be the quarterback of WWE throughout its just ridiculously most prolific run is not a chapter of my career that I knew I was even going to get. I think from the outside looking in, you almost can look at it and go, that was always the plan. But truthfully, the fact that the North Star to our game sits right here and that I was a Crockett kid, a WCW kid, and I now am able to take this everywhere and represent the company. It's special. If I had any complaints, I would kick myself for having them, just because this is what you always wanted, right? It's right there. Take it.
Well, what's that pressure like? Because you refer to yourself as QB1, but most QB1s get an off season. You don't have that. You've been going full go since Mania. What's that pressure like?
You ever see where the presidents get really old? You know what I'm saying? Like Obama looked like 29, and then all of a sudden he was 45 in the first 2 years in office, or whatever it may be. I will say that's the amount of pressure. And again, I had a lifetime to prepare for it, and it's like it was all new. Like, oh yeah. So I think my favorite part of it is now I have we're talking presidential, but I have like a cabinet of people who help me with everything now, and that is just, I'm really blessed. I was telling WWE President Nick Khan that the other day. I am so blessed. Someone to help me with social, someone to write my calendar out, someone to do, just that we can have these conversations every Friday Night SmackDown about where the WWE champ needs to be, what we need to do next, what shows we're going to, and they've really kind of molded that into how I would do it. So it's an incredible amount of pressure. My gosh, again, I hope I don't age to the degree that you see those dudes age, but it's pressure I wanted.
Talking about finishing that story, who in that locker room or coming up through that locker room do you see as being that next person that you would love to see get that moment? We saw Jey Uso on Monday get his first individual title. Who are some of those guys you look at and say, hey, that's going to be an awesome finishing of the story also?
Oh, gosh. I'm very impressed with Braun. And again, shout out to Jay for what he did. That story with Jay, that's just a chapter in his story. I see him continuing upwards. But I look at somebody, and again, not my favorite person, and don't really know him well, and what I know of him, he's not the nicest dude, but I look at somebody like a Dom Mysterio, and there you have this guy was involved in a match for his own custody as a child, and now is this wonderfully, he's a great contributor to WWE in terms of whether they're booing him out of the building or not. We like that. That's an awesome thing to see. And him and Liv have had an incredible story. Dom is somebody that if I'm looking at a story I want to watch and I know, hey, I can tune into WWE in 15 years, I expect to see him in a completely different light. Nothing like what we have now. A completely different light and a full evolution of his character.
Like we've said, the only heel to turn heel.
Hey, you got to be pretty good to be able to do that.
Cody, I don't like to borrow questions from other podcasts or shows, but I do have to ask you something that we didn't talk to you about the last time, because we don't know if we're going to get another bite of the apple anytime soon. So I'll ask this. How much does it mean to you, and I know you see these memes like we do, for the person that you are, the family man that you are, your background, that African-American fans relate to you as much as they do, that they could see you standing with Dr. King, they could see you on the Pettis Bridge at Selma, standing with Malcolm X. When you first saw that, what was your reaction? And what does that say that fans across the country and around the world, especially African-American fans, relate to you and your family?
I'm always really careful because that's not a choice I can make. It's a choice that they've made, and it is. I'm touched about it, hearing about it now, solely because I don't know what I did. My dad's biggest fan base was African American, especially in the South, and I felt like I could see things that maybe he did where they could relate. For me, I don't know if I am relatable, but the choice to do that and to put their arm around me and let me in, gosh, I just want to make sure I do everything right to honor said choice. I don't take it lightly by any means. I'm not the one saying it. It's thank you, and I would never take something like that for granted, because that really is, in addition to being fun when you see all that stuff, it's incredibly touching, and I hope I can continue to do whatever I did to earn it in the first place.
It's always amazing, just to think back at the growth of Cody Rhodes within WWE, and I know they've done a lot of chronicling his story, but it is again incredible to think about how low he was to now him being again one of the moments of the year and winning night 2 of WrestleMania.
He is this generation Cena, because he's doing all of the press, he's doing all the shows, and so he's QB1. He said he's the quarterback of this WWE, and people want him to finish his story. He's been a fine champion. I look forward to seeing what his future will hold. Yeah,
you see him in these interviews, and we've had him on twice now, and it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense why he's in that role and why he is the face of the company, because he gets it done. He's a politician, but fun to talk to.
Yes.
Well, next up in our year in review show, I think this is the guy that Brian wishes was the face of WWE. Hood and I could not make this one, so I kind of felt bad. But Sami Zayn did join the show earlier this year.
I feel like it lived forever because of social media, but your comedy on screen as part of the Bloodline story, which was the top story in all of wrestling at the time. What are some of the moments you remember of getting guys to crack? Because that's always what still goes viral to this day. What are some of the moments you remember most from that?
Well, Jay obviously had a bit of a problem keeping it together. And the irony was, in the story, he was definitely the one who was supposed to kind of have it out for me the most. So it was kind of ironic that he would be the one that struggled the most. But it almost became like a self-fulfilling prophecy, where after it happened once or twice, and it was like, he just couldn't keep it together ever. And it just kind of spiraled out of control. But I think it's also so memorable because it's not something you ever really see in our world. So even in like Saturday Night Live or sketch comedy, a lot of the ones that do really stick out are when they can't really keep it together.
Sure.
I mean, sometimes I think it's a little overdone, frankly,
Yeah.
but
Jimmy Fallon. Yep, I gotcha.
right. Like, come on, you're supposed to be a professional here, But like back in the day, especially when it never happened, and then you saw it happen once or twice, it was like, oh my God. And it's just such a memorable thing because it just sticks out so much, and because it's live, you don't really get to fix it. But you even see, I mean, I don't know about you, but I think a lot of people, myself included, really enjoy if you look at one of your favorite television shows ever and like see the blooper reel.
Right.
Well, it's not live, so that stuff gets cut. But if it was live, some of that stuff would have no choice but to live forever. But that stuff's always fun, just to watch these performers who are really, really good struggle to kind of keep it together. Like, it even gets them, because it's designed to get you.
Right.
But if it's getting them, that's like, oh, wow, this is really, really something, And I think that's part of the appeal of it.
How much are you sort of an inspiration to those in the locker room about staying the course? Because you talk about even your WrestleMania journeys where it's one year you're in a mousetrap, the next year you're main eventing Mania. How much are you an inspiration to others in that locker room?
I really don't know. You'd have to ask them. I don't know. I'm pretty proud of myself and my career and all that sort of stuff. But I'm also like, sometimes I just wonder if anybody notices anything.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, everyone's just kind of in their own world. And, even like getting a reputation in the world of wrestling, it just takes years and years and years of consistency. And even then, you're not even sure people even pick up on it. You really don't know until maybe like, after doing it for years and years and years, and then, oh, okay. Like, only now do I feel like when I come out on any given show, a live event or whatever, the reaction is going to be good. But even now, I always still have like my doubts.
Really?
Because I always just feel like I have to earn it on a nightly basis, But now it's like, okay, over the last 2 years, they're pretty consistent. I'm like, okay, maybe now I'm in their good books. But that took like, 20 years and like a solid 8 years in WWE, week in, week out, and like constantly giving good performances over and over and over, to where finally, like, it just clicks eventually, like, hey, wait a minute, this guy's good. And it wasn't just last time, it was the time before that. And it was the time before that. Like, you know what? It's always going to be good. And that's like, it just takes years. So like Randy Orton's my favorite example, but Randy Orton gets the loudest reaction on the show every single night. At these live events, when we go town to town, Randy Orton's music. And it's because he's part of he's incredible, first of all, but he's part of the furniture. Like, he's part of if they've been watching for 15 years, he's been there for all 15 of these years.
Right.
Being incredible and taking them on emotional rides year in, year out, week in, week out. It's just a level of consistency and time that ingratiates yourself. It just ingrains you into their heart in a way that, like, being in the middle of a good storyline right now, it's just not the same. Like, you'll get a reaction, they'll be into it, but it's a different level when it's been through years and years and years of consistency. And like, I think Randy Orton is probably the best example of that.
AgoraCleveland.com. Sami Zayn and friends do Cleveland Friday, August 2nd. In terms of that, putting that time in, we've talked a lot on this show about the moment when, not if, but when you become world champion is going to be one of those memorable moments. What will that moment mean to you when you finally become world champ?
I really don't know. You kind of don't know till you're in it.
Sure.
But a lot of people have done a lot of incredible things, and when you actually do them, it's not always what you think it's going to be. Including like main eventing WrestleMania or winning or whatever. Like, yeah. Sometimes WrestleMania is just such a stressful time. It's such a stressful day that by the time you go out and do it, there's like nothing left in the emotional reserve. And that's something like a lot of wrestlers or a lot of performers won't tell you, because we're supposed to sell it like it's the most glorious moment in the world. And it really is, especially when you're able to step back from it. But sometimes in the moment, a lot of things don't feel quite how you think they're going to feel. But there's also the total opposite to that rule, which is things you think they're going to be good and they exceed your expectations. Like the stuff when I was doing that, the story with Roman and the bloodline, all that stuff, the stuff in Montreal, we had a feeling they would be incredible, but it exceeded all expectations.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I stopped even trying to I don't even think in those terms anymore of like, what is it going to feel like? I don't know. I'll know when I'm there. And hopefully I get there. But if and when I do, I hope I'm just present enough in the moment to appreciate it. And I hope it's a special moment for the audience more than anything.
We talk a lot in terms of wrestling fans about Fight Forever, and I feel like you and KO are in that boat. Do you know how many times you guys have wrestled? And even if you don't, is there a match that sticks out as like, all right, that's one that I know we both believe really worked?
There's a bunch. I can't pick one as a favorite, but there's a lot that I've loved. I mean, there's just no shortage. And all of them are kind of for different reasons as well. I think the one we did in 2016, maybe it was Battleground. It was like the end of our rivalry in 2016. That's one of, I think, both of our favorites. We did a ladder match back in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla on the Independence. It's one of my favorites. There's one that we did in Ring of Honor WrestleMania weekend. Actually, it's what put me on WWE's radar. There was a scout there called Canyon Seaman. It was his first weekend on the job, and he saw me in that match. And that's kind of the match that put me on the radar and got me hired in a weird way. It was in 2011 in Florida, WrestleMania weekend. It was a last man standing match. There's just so many. I don't even know where to begin. Our first one in the States, a 4-way, in 2004, 20 years ago. Crazy. There's so many special ones. I don't know. They're all special for different reasons.
Last couple of things there. Saw you recently on Twitter on the WWE Vault. You shouted out an El Generico match. Let's do some fantasy booking. If we ever had Sami Zayn versus retired independent wrestler El Generico, how would that match go?
I don't know.
You guys similar styles, like you said on Twitter.
Yeah. It would probably be a pretty competitive fight. Both guys are kind of known for their heart and like sticking it out. So I don't know. I feel like I feel like that one would go like 45 minutes, and just both guys just blown to high hell and struggling to get up, but kind of still fighting through it. I feel like it'd be that kind of match.
Again, I really wished I could be there too, because I think we're all fans of Sammy. I mean, not to the level that Brian is, of course. But,
of course.
I mean, how could we possibly? But he's had, a pretty meteoric rise and a really good 2024 as well.
Well, I think that the way this interview had to happen, it had to be Brian and Sammy because it was intimate. There was some candles that were burning around Brian while he was having this. So I'm glad you were able to have your moment with a guy that you believe should be WWE champion.
It's your guys' fault that there was time for me to ask him to book a Sami Zayn versus El Generico match. I don't know if that would have happened or there's all three of us getting our shots up. So you guys are to blame for that.
I guess we have to wear that hood. That's on us. We also had an opportunity to talk with Bianca Belair, and she had a lot of interesting things to say, kind of the same thing along the lines of Becky Lynch. So you are, as I mentioned, one half of the tag team champions. So what has been the best part and what's been the most difficult part about transitioning into a tag team?
Well, I would say the best part has been just being with Jay Cargill and showing the strength and showing the talent that we have and going out there and just really representing who we are and being able to have more fun. It's less pressure, I feel like, than being a singles competitor because I have a tag team partner that I can rely on, or I'm getting beat up a little too much, I can tag her in and say, girl, come help me. But it's really been fun being in a different role. And being able to feel like we're elevating this tag team division and having matches where so many women can really showcase their talents. It's exciting and it's new and it's different and it's fresh. I would say the most challenging would be for me. I mean, I was a singles competitor for so long, right? So all I had to worry about was myself. And now you're in a tag team. So now you're collaborating. And now before, for me, honestly, this is going to sound really funny. But it's like the gear and the fashion part, because everyone knows I make and sew my own gear, right? And I'm always trying to be creative and think of new ideas. And I've only had to think about what I like and myself. And I make my gear very, very last minute. So now when you have a tag team partner, it's like you have all these ideas and you guys might do the same things. And then you're like, we get so confused in our text thread. And then she's like, girl, I have a gear maker. I have to give them like a heads up. Oh, the night before. So it's just that part has been, when we text each other, we have to do voice memos because we get so confused. We show up with 3 different outfits and it's not what we talked about. I think that's been the hardest part of the collaboration of being the tag team.
Fans are starting to make their WrestleMania plans. You're someone in your young career is already making WrestleMania moments. What's the pressure like for you leading up to WrestleMania season every year and trying to think of what that next moment's going to be for you personally?
Yeah, at first I feel like it was a lot easier for me because, I'd never done it before. So you have these ideas, even when it comes to gear, when it comes to entrances, and you're like, okay, I have a great gear, I have a great entrance, or I have a great match, I have a great moment. The more times that you do WrestleMania, the more the pressure is because you're trying to top the year before. And then everybody's trying to top each other because that's what's amazing about WrestleMania. You get the best gears, the best entrances, the best matches. Everybody's trying to be the best. And so now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, what other entrance can I do? What gear is good enough for WrestleMania? What match am I going to have this year? Who am I going to have a match? Because our women's roster is so stacked that anybody can be on WrestleMania. So everybody's trying to fight to get on the card. So it's not just one night, it's 2 nights, but that's what's really cool about WrestleMania. You get the best of everyone's just trying to give their best at WrestleMania.
You've already accomplished so much in your career. You've won the Rumble. You've won both women's championships. You've done the tag team championships. So what goals do you have left in your career? What are the goals you still want to accomplish?
Yeah, I've accomplished a lot so quickly. No, I've made WrestleMania Night 1. I would love to main event WrestleMania Night 2 because I feel like that's a whole nother status type of thing. I would love to be a part of a women's match that doesn't even have a title. I would love to get to WrestleMania where both women's titles are defended, the tag team titles are defended, but we also have a women's match on the card that's the storyline is just so great that we don't necessarily have to have a title. I feel like the men do it all the time, and I feel like it would show how much the women's roster has evolved because that's how much talent that we have. We just need more matches. We just have so many women. And I would love, being in the tag team was one of my goals. I had never done that before. I want to be tag team champion. It's new, it's fresh. I also, I look up to people like Becky Lynch and Bailey who have accomplished so much, but they also do so much for the division. They elevate the division. And I want my name to be in the same conversation as them. I feel like, you're doing something right when you have enough equity to where you can reach out and help people, pull people up and help this division and leave this division better than it was when you came. They've done that. I want to do that. And I feel like I'm able to do that, starting with the tag team division and help elevate it, put more girls on the scene, showcase their talents. I mean, right now in our storyline, you have, from across all 3 brands, it's tag teams being highlighted. It's me and Jay Cargill being highlighted. You have Chelsea and Piper being highlighted. You have Io and Kyrie being highlighted on Raw. Now you have Lash and Jakar on NXT. There's so many women being highlighted. I know a lot of people talk about having a mid-card title at one point, so more women can be highlighted, but that's what this tag team division is doing. I'm a part of that, and it makes me feel happy. So that's one of my goals, is to continue to elevate our women's roster.
We can't wait to hear the answer on that. But before we let you go, Bianca, there's been so much talk, and even Hunter was asked about it during the last PLE about representation in the WWE. When you hear people talk about that, and you being an African American performer in the WWE, when you hear people talk about representation, what does that mean to you?
Representation means everything to me. I always use the quote, representation is not a request, it's a requirement. And I think that's what's amazing about WWE is that if you look at our roster, anybody can watch WWE and see somebody that they relate to. Anyone. It's multi-generational. It's people from all different cultures, people from all over the world. But representation is so important. And I feel like that's what is so unique about WWE in the WWE universe, is that our audience, they want to turn the TV on and be able to see someone that they can relate to, that draws them in. And so that's what I love about WWE. I love being in the tag team that I'm in right now. I love that I've been able to be a part of a lot of amazing moments, making history by, being one of the first Black women to main event WrestleMania, make history, become history myself and create a legacy. But I love being a part of all these amazing moments, and I look forward to continue to be a part of some amazing moments and continue to be a part of representation and show that in WWE.
And what she said there again about not needing a championship, wanting to tell meaningful stories and having a WrestleMania match where, it doesn't have to have a championship on the line. That seemed to be a theme with a lot of the wrestlers we talked to in 2024.
Yeah, she's so confident when you hear her speak. And she's a grizzled veteran in WWE. I think we look forward in 2025 to see her against Jade Cargill. Jade's been away for a while. There's going to be something along the lines of, hey, Bianca, you didn't call me. What's going on? You didn't care for me. I was hurt. You didn't check in on me. So I think we can get a combustible element between those two in 2025.
And I think we forget that Bianca is one of those people that came through the outside. She was a college athlete. It's like, oh, hey, how about you try this wrestling thing? So polished in the ring, so polished out of the end. Dare to say she's the QB1 on the women's side of the WWE right now.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we had an opportunity to talk with one of the more interesting characters in all of professional wrestling. To be honest, we weren't sure how this one was going to go, but it turned out great as we talked with Freshly Squeezed Orange Cassidy. How have you been able to balance your character in AEW? Because, you come in as kind of the Joe Cool, nothing bothers you. And yet for a while, especially while you were international champion, it felt like if I wasn't hearing Jane to start an episode of Dynamite, I was wondering what was going on. You kind of start as this guy, okay, if I have to wrestle, I guess I will, to kind of being the workhorse. You have the most wins in the history of the company. How have you been able to balance that since you've come into now?
I think it's because of AEW and that the way I was brought into AEW. I think I was able to, evolve into something more. And I think that is the benefit that AEW has that some other places wouldn't, about letting somebody change throughout their career. I did what I had to do. I would try if I wanted to, but then it came to a point when you become international champion. At that time, I was all Atlantic champion, and it didn't really have an identity. So you just do what you have to do, right? And that was just do what a champion does, and that's wrestle whenever and wherever, literally. And I feel that championship had its identity while I made a new identity for myself. I was never the same after those two international title runs. And for where I am now than I was 5 years ago, you could say I've changed quite a bit.
Orange, what does it say that when you come to ringside, you see kids dressed like you? What does that mean to you personally to know, hey, this is who I am, but yet kids live vicariously through you?
I look at that, I go, it's still working. People still like me. Especially, I feel it's important for us, especially AEW, because we are such a new company. Even though we get treated like we've been around for 20 years, we've been around for 5 years. And there is going to be, within 5 years, there is going to be a new generation of fans, and they will be the kids that are watching now. When I was a child, it was very pro wrestling hit me a certain way, and it was because of when I went to live events and I interacted with the wrestlers. And I feel it's very important for us to cultivate a good fan base, especially with our kids. And I try to make sure it's that I don't do anything that would be weird. Like, some of these guys, I try not to swear, certain things, just because I do understand that kids are gravitating towards it. And because I think they can just identify, like, oh, I get it. That guy just doesn't care, but he'll do it, I guess, and I think that's, it's just reassuring.
For you, on the flip side of that, there are some curmudgeons out there that when you first burst onto the scene swore you were going to kill professional wrestling as opposed to the opposite. How did you take in some of that criticism early on?
I don't know. I think about that a lot, because when AEW first announced me, it was very polarizing. Like, there were a lot of people like, oh, this is fun. And this guy, oh, this guy's a joke. Blah, blah, blah. And then, like, 3 years later, I'm like number 7 in the PWI. It is. I don't really. I listen to criticism, and I listen to people like, let's say, Jake Roberts or Dean Malenko, and they will give me advice, and I always take what I can from it. But ultimately, I do what I think is the best, and I if I'm making the professional wrestling that I enjoy, then I would like to think that most people would enjoy it too. And I don't hit a home run every time. This is ESPN, so I say I don't bat 1,000, but
Mr. Sports.
Yeah, I'd be 333 is pretty good, right?
It's Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
that's it.
Again, AEW Ticks, if you want to check out Fright Night Dynamite coming up in Cleveland, Ohio, Orange Cassidy. Did you ever think, I heard this from Tony Schiavone, in the last couple of weeks with the new storyline that you're involved in, calling you one of the faces of AEW. When you joined the company, did you think that was ever something that was going to be said about you, that you would be put in a prominent position representing the company?
No, and I don't think that I am, nor should I be. I don't want that. I never wanted that. I wanted to do what I had to do, and go home. But especially after what happened last night, it's been made very clear to me that I think I have no choice in this situation. Like before, early in AEW, there was always this thing of, oh, he's going to try, or he'll care this time. I don't feel that I have any choice in this matter. I have to fight, and I have to take down. I have to fight, and I don't want to, but if the people around me that I care about the most are going to be hurt, then I really have no choice in the matter.
Transformation this year as well, as he's taken on the Death Riders. He comes out in the black denim versus the blue denim. But I mean, he has been the workhorse since AEW came in. I mean, he's got the most wins in company history, and he was fantastic to talk to.
Old time podcasters hate Orange Cassidy. The old schoolers, he's got his hands in his pocket. Goddamn, why has he got his hands in his pocket? So all I can tell you is that beyond just the things that he does, like the little kicks and the indifference, you've seen a different Orange Cassidy in 2024, where he's still doing those little things. But as far as his work in the ring, that guy is serious about trying to put his character over, but also wrestles to a high level where people are saying, wow, this guy isn't a lazy wrestler. This guy's getting it done as a workhorse, as you mentioned, Gabe.
Yeah, I'd say one of AEW's biggest success stories. Like, there are those detractors and people complaining, but everyone's like, oh, wow, this guy's really good. And you want him as the face of your company now.
Again, we had to limit it at some point. We couldn't put all of the interviews. So make sure you check out the YouTube page, youtube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. We talked with Liv Morgan. We talked with Chelsea Green this year. So many other interviews that we have to get to. There's a lot of great WrestleMania content that Brian Rowitz put up there from his time in Philadelphia with interviews with guys like Kevin Owens. So make sure you check out all the other interviews we did throughout 2024, youtube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. We'll be back next week with another